Hey people, CzarThwomp here, and welcome to episode 45 of the Greatest Attorney 2 Resolved. Last time, we did some more cross-examining, and we managed to get Sithe to admit that basically she helped Enoch Drebber with his plan. But then, basically, even though Albert was going to be declared not guilty, Ryo and Isuke wanted to pursue the truth. We got another cross-examination with Dr. Sithe, with Courtney Sithe, and then basically we brought up an objection involving her, how she stabbed the body in the birdcage with Andrew the screwdriver. Let's do this. I apologize, my lord. Dr. Sithe, in that last statement of yours, there's just one point that seems to defy explanation.
Out with it, my learned friend.
There's an obvious inconsistency between your description and this photograph, which shows the victim in the birdcage following the events that have led to his death.
Objection! The court has already examined that photograph in depth. There's nothing new we can learn from it.
Objection!
Yes, we have already considered it, that's true. But we now know the facts to be different.
What do you mean? I believe we should let the defense explain. Where in this photograph would we see the alleged inconsistency with the witness's statement?
Take that!
Look closely at the bloodstain on the victim's chest. It clearly extends in a downward direction towards the man's feet.
And why is that significant, counsel? If the victim was stabbed moments before the kinesis machine was in motion, that's entirely expected. Ah! Of course, no! That's not what happened!
Exactly, my lord. Dr. Sithe made it clear in her testimony just now that the point at which she stole Professor Harebrain's screwdriver and stabbed the victim was after the grand deception was set in motion, when the birdcage had fallen below the stage and out of sight. sorry. From the shape of it, it's clear that the birdcage would have fallen on its side after the 30-foot drop, and the victim had really been stabbed whilst the birdcage was in that position. The blood from the wound would have spread out evenly in all directions. For it to have formed the longitudinal appearance we see in this picture, it's inconceivable. Given that the victim's blood seeped vertically downward from the wound, it must be the case that when you stabbed Mr. Asman, he was standing up. In short, Dr. Sithe, your latest testimony was a total fabrication. I knew it. I was right. Now I've identified that contradiction. There's only one way to explain the facts. We've all been under a great misapprehension here.
What? What sort of misapprehension?
Dr. Sithe, you claim you were coerced into helping Mr. Drebber as a result of the note he left in the waxwork. You claim that you made changes to the scene of the crime to implicate the defendant. And you claim that you authored a fake autopsy report to cover your tracks. But one of those claims is an out-and-out lie, because the question of what the bloodstain really tells us has only one possible answer.
If that is the case, what is it, man? Counsel, you clearly struck upon a revelation. Now tell the court what it is. Which part of Dr. Sithe's story is shown to be a lie by the contradiction of her testimony?
The answer is very simple, if you consider the sequence of events. If when the victim was stabbed, the blood from the wound seeped downward, as it did, we can be sure that the victim must have been either sitting or standing upright at the time.
But as you rightly pointed out, the birdcage would have fallen on its side when it fell beneath the stage.
Yes, it would, which tells us that the victim must have been in a position, that position of his own accord.
Objection! That's impossible! The man was dead, remember?
No, that is the misapprehension. When the birdcage fell from the stage into the void below, it must have hit the ground with considerable force. But Mr. Asman didn't die in the fall. He probably lost consciousness for a while, but when he came around, he got to his feet to climb out of the cage. Just as Dr. Sithe appeared. If the victim was in fact alive at that point in time, it changes everything. Mr. O.D. Asman's killer wasn't the defendant, Professor Albert Hairrain, nor was it the mastermind behind the sage trickery, Mr. Enoch Dribber. It was you, Dr. Courtney Sithe.
Order! Can this possibly be true? Have you been taking me for a fool? It was you, was it? You killed him! You ruined my day! I was gonna basically embarrass him! And I was gonna say, ah ha ha, you fell for my trick! I didn't do anything! All I did was use your money to buy prostitutes off the side of the road! I bought East End prostitutes, not even the good prostitutes! I bought the cheapest ones I could find! And then I bought the expensive ones! And then I brought the expensive ones and had them fight the cheap ones in my lab for my amusement! And then basically I used the French motor oil and basically just lined the arena. I created my own show, basically. East End prostitute oil wrestling. It was going to be my magnum opus.
You hoped that by admitting to being an accomplice in Mr. Drebber's scheme, the trial would end, before you were accused of a far worse crime. Cold-blooded murder. Oh, do shut up. You're so desperate now, you're making all it up. As if I would do something like that. I assure you, the defense is not desperate, Doctor. Mr. Naruto is established of facts using evidence and logic and bluffs alone. Ha! Logic. Don't make me laugh. You don't have logic, Chess. You do not have some weird mindscape where you combine the ideas together. You're not Miles Edgeworth. Sadly, your logic has a gaping hole in it. What? What do you mean? I'd have thought it was obvious. A motive, boy. You're lacking a motive. What possible reason would I have to kill Asman?
Asman was involved in any number of criminal activities, from coercion to theft to murder, but there is no known connection to Dr. Sithe there. I'm rather relieved to say it does seem somewhat far-fetched.
True, there's no obvious motive, but there's still something in the back of my mind. I feel I've seen something somewhere that hints at why the coroner might have done this. Yes, I might have tampered with the crime scene and concocted fake reports, but murdering someone for no reason is a very different story. I had the bloodlust, but that doesn't mean I would kill that guy specifically. No, when you question what possible reason you could have for why to kill Mr. Asman, something did come to mind. What?
What was it? What is it, counsel? Enlighten the court once.
Yes, we saw it yesterday, didn't we? Something that seemed strange, but we had no reason to suspect it at the time. There's a particular object that explains why Dr. Sithe would have wanted to kill Mr. Asman. The screwdriver! It's the screwdriver, or should I say, Master Andrew! You're not making any sense. Huh?
Sorry, Mr. Naruto. But how is Professor Hairbrain's trusty tool related to this motive?
Andrew's related to everything! I can't really explain that myself, actually. Clearly, you have no idea what you're talking about. Ah! I think I must have said the wrong thing.
Forgive the interruption, Dr. Sithe, but what my colleague meant to say was scalpels. Perhaps that makes a little more sense to you. Darn Naruto! Clean up your mind like how you should clean up your desk.
Of course.
Did you say scalpels?
Yeah, I love how the game is actually merciful on that point. Yeah, in past Ace Attorney games, you would have been punished for that, for your lack of scalpel knowledge. It would appear that word has struck a chord, Doctor. You, come on, out with it. It was yesterday when we visit your laboratory. Look at this big thick book here.
Ah, it appears to be an accounting ledger. It's a record of the forensic investigation team's spending, I think. Oh,
What is it?
it's clear that the team purchases various equipment and supplies on a monthly basis, but, well, one entry seems rather strange.
Really? In what way?
They're buying 500 scalpels every month.
$500 scalpels a month?
At first, I wondered what on earth you could be using that many scalpels for. But actually, I realize now that it's not the scalpels themselves that are significant. It's the money for them, disappearing every month in the department's accounts.
Asman's criminal organization relied heavily on extortion for its funding, tracing the money from the forensic investigation team's account to find out where it was going would be extremely straightforward.
10 years ago, when Mr. Asman was still a journalist and wrote this article about Mr. Drebber, he may well have stumbled upon information as he was researching the story. Information relating to Dr. Sithe's darkest secret that he could use to rake money from her for the next decade.
Her darkest secret? Good lord, you mean?
I don't know what happened on that night of the execution 10 years ago, but clearly the opportunity to rid yourself of that menace was too tempting to pass up. So in the end, you weren't coerced at all, were you? You did it entirely of your own free will. You stabbed Mr. Asman in the heart with all your might. To silence the blackmailer who knew your dark secret forever. You'll never understand. None of you. What we've had to keep covered up all these long years. I won't give you the satisfaction of a breakdown.
I don't even get a breakdown. What the heck?
As very little of the machine remains after it was ripped apart by the bomb. The truth of this case can never be properly established unless you speak out.
And if you decide not to, it's very possible that Courtney Sithe will escape punishment for her crimes. Please, sir, own up to what you've done and tell the court the truth about what happened.
10 years ago, you told the truth, and you were robbed of a bright and successful future as a result. I can certainly understand your bitterness and your consternation now. However, this is surely the chance you've been waiting for, to sever the hold that fate's had over you all these years, and CzarThwomp's eyes are failing him right now. Super high voltage instantaneous kinesis. I mean, really. How about you needed to touch grass? I am sorry. And this is coming from a guy who looks like some kind of TikTok robot that was at your local Starbucks. It's the outer-brained mock scientists that are the worst, you know. They don't recognize the fact that they don't have talent. They can't even get that right. And so they end up chasing impossible dreams, having unbridled faith in their abilities. They go on and on about their wonderful hypotheses, their stupid eyes shining like a little child's. They make me sick. I can't abide their foolishness. Careful, Mr. Drebber. I'm pretty sure Mr. Herbert is preparing Michael the screwdriver. I was particularly pleased with the kinesis machine. It made for quite a show, didn't it?
So you admit it. You admit that it was nothing more than a sham made for the purpose of killing the victim.
Yes, I admit it. I did it all in the name of revenge.
Revenge for the future that Mr. Asman's article had deprived you of 10 years earlier. But the revenge you sought didn't stop at Asman, did it?
Which is where that very particular waxwork comes in. Yes, I see.
The condemned convict that you saw rising from the grave in Logan Cemetery 10 years ago. If your account of those events was all true,
Then obviously Scotland Yard couldn't afford to acknowledge what had happened. Even if it meant discrediting a bright young man and crushing any future career he might have had.
So your plan required that you abduct that particular waxwork model in order to extract your revenge on Scotland Yard as well, or on Dr. Sithe to be precise.
It was a year ago. By some extraordinary twist of fate, Asman turned up at my workshop. He didn't remember who I was, of course. He just wanted to employ my services as an engineer. And he happened to have a paper with him. An article on the front page caught my eye about the coroner who handled the bogus autopsy being appointed head of a new forensics team. When I learned that news, my cognitive processes started to devise the plan.
what a horrible tale!
He robbed me of my future, so I wanted to use the man's own wires against him, for revenge. And have that rotten Scotland Yard eating out of my hand at the same time. I wanted them all to suffer the same humiliation I'd had to suffer.
Your actions against those who ruined your future were justified as revenge, at least, to yourself. Certainly, no one has the right to destroy another's prospects, especially for purely selfish gains. And yet, in carrying out your plan, you did exactly that to someone else, didn't you?
Did I?
Professor Harebrain's only crime was passion for his hypothesis, but you had no compunction about sacrificing his future to effect your revenge. You knew that he would be forever branded a failure and a fraud. Perhaps life treated you unfairly 10 years ago, and others' misconduct left your life in tatters. But remember this, your own actions resulted in exactly the same thing for another perfectly innocent young man.
Lord Van Zieks, what of Dr. Sithe? An immediate warrant for her arrest has been granted, and she's been remanded in custody, my lord. I presume she will face trial in the coming days along with Mr. Drebber. A most regrettable situation indeed. She's made great contributions to her profession over the years. It really is a hard truth to swallow. However, this is a topic for some future occasion. For now, Professor Harebrain...
Yes?
It seems there was a great deal more to your experiment than you realized. However, I think we can assume now that all of the sordid details have been brought to light. This has been a very long and profound trial, and I'm pleased to say you are absolved of all guilt.
The whole experience has taught me a great, very great, but painful lesson. This dedicated scientist, this devotee of natural philosophy. I've been selfish and self-centered, and above all, a fool. Professor.
Go on, you're perfectly right. Keep on going, Harebrain. Keep going, Albert.
I spent my life thinking of nothing but my research. Misguidedly believing that I could do whatever I set my mind to, despite my lack of talent. And the worst of it is, in the process, I've caused others pain and misery. Others who are far, far greater people than I.
Yes, Albert, yes! Speak the truth, Albert! Speak the truth! No, Professor, that's not true! That's super true!
What?
Don't tar yourself with the same brush as Drebber. What happened was his doing, and his alone. Oh, like you're Drebble though. Like you're Drebble. Like you're Enoch Drebble. You don't have a cool theme. You don't have a robot arm. You don't look like you're some TikTok guy from the future. You're like you're Marilyn Manson mixed with the Terminator. This outcome is his. This outcome is his fate, not yours. You're not to blame in any way.
Lord Van Zieks.
And the derision with which he referred you earlier, calling you a fool, talentless even. The man has no idea. To believe in yourself and work your fingers to the bone to realize your dreams. That's laudable, not laughable. Except in the case of that railgun, that was a crime against humanity. No one has the right to deride others for such choices.
Oh! Thank you, Barack.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Yes, my lord.
It seems this court's expectation. It is this court's expectation that you find the defendant not guilty of the charge of which he stands accused. I presume there are no objections?
None from me, my lord.
Certainly not. This trial has really made me think, but this is the right decision.
It's all been proven methodically and rigorously. I have no misgivings whatsoever.
What's that? He's done, is he? It's all over?
Oh, now what did he come to the yard these days? I recognize the place.
Very well. In that case, I hereby pronounce the defendant.
Yeah, we'll finish up the case and then basically we'll end things off.
Court is adjourned.
It's over. That was some trial. The 24th of October, 4:33 p.m., the Old Bailey Defendant's Antechamber. Professor, what a splendid outcome, isn't it?
Oh, it is! Congratulations, Professor Hairbrain! Mr. Naruto, Miss Susato, I am truly beside myself with gratitude! How can I ever thank you enough?
I'm just glad it's been all cleared up, that you realize you were just caught up in a bad situation.
Right now, you know, if I had that research grant money, I would build a super death laser, I would build a giant attack robot, and I would destroy the city. I would burn everything to the ground as righteous revenge. I would rule this world, and it would be mine. Andrew would be given the Western Hemisphere, and I the East, and Michael the East. I'd give the whole lot to you, every penny.
Well, that's very kind, but I'm just a student, so...
We don't need any financial reward. Your acquittal is more than enough. Oh dear. Oh, what can I do? How about this? As a memento, this paper about my hypothesis is inside.
Well, just as a memento then, thank you.
I've been wondering, Professor. What are you going to do now? Giant death robot! Giant attack robot! Giant fighting robot that will punch people in the face. Oh my, yes. What am I going to do? My hypothesis and my great machine lie in ruins. But still, it's been too long since I was last in London, so perhaps I'll enjoy some sightseeing. I must explore the great exhibition whilst I'm here too, and see if new inspiration hits me. I'll heckle my fellow scientists from the crowd. You call that a particle accelerator? My grandma can build a better particle accelerator. Oh yes, that's a wonderful idea.
Okay. Ooh, is it Sherlock? Or, okay, I was guessing if it's either Gregson, Van Zieks, or Gregson. Lord Van Zieks, what are you doing here?
Barack!
I'm sorry you had to go through that, Albert. I'm sorry that you had to associate with my learned Nipponese friend. Your association with him shall forever tarnish your future.
Well, if I'm to be honest, it was terrifying. You were like a great demon behind your bench there, snarling down on your prey. It was just like the old days.
Albert, why the heck are you moving like that? Really, Albert, what even is that with that shoulder shimmy? What are you going to do? Shimmy, shimmy, shimmy me while you're trying to fight for dominance, Albert? Because I will simply push you down, Albert. I'll just tap you lightly on your chest and you'll be down on the floor. You're one of the few true friends I have. I couldn't leave it to anybody else to handle the prosecution or the defense.
Sorry? Or the defense?
I knew you would prove him innocent, my learned Nipponese friend. You proved McGill did innocence, and he was a monster.
Did I just hear that right?
I always knew that you had my best interest at heart. Don't worry. How about you show me around while I'm here and down? It's been a long time since we left university. We have a lot to catch up on. You can buy me a churro.
I am not buying you a churro. Listen, Albert. In a few days, your acquittal will be made official. When that happens, you must head straight to Dover. I'll accompany you. I'll put you in the shipping crate. I am not keeping you in London, Albert. You will cause fires.
What?
From there, you'll cross the channel to make your way back to Germany. I've already purchased the tickets. You're going in a crate, in a zoo crate. You'll be like Madagascar, the movie.
But no, hold on a minute, Barack. I don't want to go in the crate. I'm afraid of the dark.
Well, you should have thought about that, Albert, before you came back here. No sightseeing, Albert. Give up on the idea.
What about the next exhibit? This is just a light there for me. I want to look around. So sometimes it's hard to see any warmth in those eyes, Barack.
That's because you drained it all away, Albert. You are the cause. You are one of the reasons I drink at 11 in the morning. And you're one of the reasons why I want to basically cry at night.
I'm Lord Van Zieks. What's all this about?
Unnecessary precaution.
Yes, I understand.
You do?
Well, Iris told me that when you met Lord Van Zieks at his office some days ago, he asked about how Mr. Natsume was doing.
Yes, that's right. I remember being surprised at the time and thinking it was nice of him to say.
The point is, Mr. Natsume is still alive and well, even though it's been more than 6 months now since he stood trial with the Reaper as the prosecution.
You mean the Reaper's influence doesn't stretch overseas?
The Reaper apparently does not have a passport. Those in the Reaper sites meet their end days or sometimes months after the acquittal. That's been the pattern up to now.
But of course, we know that both Mr. Natsume and Gina were completely innocent.
Yeah, Gina's still here.
True. And perhaps that governs the Reaper's actions. The truly innocent are spared. But I don't want to take any chances with a close personal friend. I think we share the same blood type, Albert. If I ever get wounded, I'm going to need your blood.
But Barack!
Like the mustached Nipponese, this man should leave the country without delay. That's why I'm packing him off to Germany at once. You're going in the animal crate. You're going in the shipping crate. Can I leave them an arrow? No time for air holes.
Right. Does your friend-shaped package get any say in it?
Good goodness! Was this your intention all along then, Lord Van Zieks?
In court, where people think of him as the Reaper, this man seems absolutely merciless, and yet, sometimes I feel as though I don't understand him at all.
It's time to go, Albert. Back to the prison for the time being.
Yes, all right. Well then, Mr. Naruto. Thank you so much for everything.
Not at all, Professor. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Best wishes, Professor Hairbrain. Well, once the dust is settled, you must come and visit me in Germany. Anyways, goodbye for now.
No, my Nipponese friend.
Oh, yes? I thought you were going too.
We have matters to discuss. Can you spare me some time?
You want to talk with me?
I'll be waiting in the courtroom in 10 minutes. Bring your best dueling pistol.
Well, that was strange. For some reason, I didn't get that sense of impending doom as he walked away this time. The Enigma, Barack Van Ziek. What does he want to discuss, I wonder? The answer waits in the courtroom, I suppose. Here goes, then. "24th of October, 4:58 p.m. The Old Bailey courtroom.
So, are you satisfied? You saved a guiltless scientist from a great injustice.
Yes, I think so. I'm relieved, at least, that the man's innocence could be proven.
Anyways, I imagine you've been wondering where my animosity towards you Nipponese comes from.
Well, at first I thought you just didn't like me. I imagined you saw me as a pretentious child from an unimportant land who had no business be here. But now I think differently. You clearly know our ways. So I would guess that some specific incident led to your thorough dislike of my race. Will you tell me what happened, please?
Of course I know all about your ways. I can't defeat my enemies unless I know my enemies. The Professor. I thought I'd never hear that name in this courtroom again, to be honest.
He took your brother's life.
Clint. My brother was Clint Van Zieks, and he had a mullet that rivaled mine. 16 years ago, when I was still just in my teens, he was already the director of prosecutions and a key member of the judiciary. I looked up to him. He was everything I aspired to be. That is why I had my mullet. I grew in my mighty mullet. He was involved in the establishment of justice systems in foreign countries as well. There were exchange programs between Britain and other nations then too, to share knowledge and ideas. As part of one of those programs, 3 judicial students came to Britain from your homeland, the Empire of Japan.
Oh! If it was 16 years ago, then one of them could have been my father.
Of course! I remember Dr. Mikotoba well.
I had no idea.
I was a minor at the time, training at the prosecutor's office. One day, Clint introduced me to the 3 visiting Nipponese.
So you actually met my father.
He and his colleagues were polite and amicable. They were adept in their work and exacting in their standards. It was my first encounter with the Nipponese spirit, and it made a very great impression upon me. But 6 years later, that's when it happened. The investigation was going nowhere. There were no suspects even, just an ever-growing list of victims. And in the end, my brother became one of them. The last, in fact, before the case was finally resolved.
I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zieks. Truly.
Clint was always ready to put his life on the line for justice anyways. So he wouldn't have wanted any other way. He lost his life to the killer, but it was his victory in the end. For me personally, though, it was a great loss. I found myself in a very dark place indeed. When I finally found out the killer's identity, the reason why no one had been able to catch the man sooner ceased to be such a mystery. He'd been hiding in plain sight all this time.
In plain sight?
Are you aware of a political event 10 years ago? It was a period of extremely sensitive diplomacy between the British and Japanese empires.
A new treaty was being forged, I think. I'm just so gassy right now.
Correct. The Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Friendship and Navigation was concluded. The leaders of both countries were deep in extensive political discussions. Which is why this particular killer's appearance in court was conducted as a closed trial. If the British public had known the identity of the killer, not only would the treaty have been in jeopardy, but our two nations could have very well have ended up at war.
What? A war? Between Britain and Japan?
But that would mean... Oh my! You mean to say the professor was...
When the trial reached its conclusion earlier, I thought to myself, yes, it's time. Time for you to come face to face with this hideous monster. I borrowed the key for the mask from the proprietress of the Waxwork Museum. So see for yourselves now. Confirm it with your own eyes. The truth that's been hidden this past decade.
That's the professor?
Yes, it's him.
Until now, the thought never even crossed my mind. That the mass murderer, whose crimes shook Britain as never before, was Japanese.
Wait a minute. That face. I feel as though I've seen it somewhere. It's strangely familiar.
Father. What? Father? Kazuma! My best friend, Kazuma Asogi. After a whole year, finally his memories returned. As he stood there before me, Ryunosuke. Hello again. My friend.
Kazuma-sama!
Judicial Assistant Mikotoba.
It's been a very long road. Thank you. Thank you for guiding my friend here when I could not.
It was an honor.
I knew you wouldn't die that easily. Kazuma.
I owe you thanks, too, for taking good care of that in my absence.
Oh. Karuma, the great blade of the Asogi clan, passed down through the generations. When we left Japan, this sword was at my friend's side. The Japanese man's katana is his soul, and he couldn't be parted from it. But then, when the incident happened, it was Susato-san's wish that I inherit the sword, and I've kept it with me ever since, along with my memories of the friendship we shared. With this by my side, I always felt that you were watching over me somehow.
I've made it. At last.
Father. Are you saying... Surely not. You mean, you knew all this time? I'm looking at it. But I still can't believe it. This mass murderer is Kazuma's father.
Kazuma-sama.
Ryunosuke, we have much to talk about. But now is not the time. I'll be seeing you.
That's all Kazuma said. Before he turned and left us there, in the courtroom.
And then meanwhile, you're probably questioning where the heck Van Zieks is. I mean, how is he reacting to this? The fact that his assistant was basically the son of the guy who killed his brother. Van Zieks left to get rid of all his wine. I knew it was. Oh my gosh! He was touching my wine. I may be dying. My learned Nipponese friend, you must continue my legacy. You must bring my second book to light. Bring forth the sunset, my plans to eventually defeat the Nipponese. Yeah, but just that scream though that Kazuma does. I know that basically it's supposed to be some emotionally tense moment, but I just can't help but laugh every time I see that. Like, I have to resist the urge to just burst out laughing because just how they zoom in on Kazuma and he just screams, just that scream. It just hit me like a truck the first time because I wasn't expecting it, especially after they don't do any breakdowns for any real major breakdowns for Enoch or for Courtney. So basically just no breakdowns there. It's quiet. So you're not you're expecting something solid there, and then all of a sudden just the scream like ah! And then meanwhile, two spells. While Kazuma's doing that, is cleaving that waxwork in twain. Two spells. She's outside somewhere.
Ah! I feel as though one of my greatest works has been. I feel as though that one of my greatest works has been defiled.
Now she's gonna come after Kazuma with the bill. She's gonna sue Kazuma. Yes, Kazuma Asogi, my best friend.
3 months ago when Lord Strongheart introduced us, I had an inkling there was something there. Some connection.
But why did Lord Strongheart do that? Why did he make Kazuma Lord Van Zieks' apprentice? And when he was suffering amnesia too?
The man who was apprehended, even executed, but his legacy just won't die. That's the sad truth. Anyways, that's all I had to say. Thank you for meeting with me as I asked. Now if you excuse me, I'm going to throw away all the wine in my office. Can't run the risk now.
10 years ago, my grandmother took me to the railway station. We were there to meet my father from the train. For me, it was the first time I'd ever seen him.
Poor Susato-san. All this is tied up with the painful memories for her too. She's never talked about this with me before though.
It took time to adjust to having father around, but just as I was starting to get used to it, he called me into his study one day. He told me that a great friend of his had passed away in London, and that friend had left behind a son, a boy, 7 years my senior. Father told me the boy had made a promise to his late father, so he was studying to become a defense lawyer. I wanted to help, so I studied to become a qualified judicial assistant. As I'm sure you've worked out, that young man's name was Kazuma Asogi. So you see, that's how he and I met.
For a brief moment, my great friend had returned, only to disappear again all too soon. But in that fleeting encounter, something stirred. Something that had been dormant for a long time. As if great wheels had been set in motion. I could almost hear them creaking into life. In some ways, it was the end of a chapter. But in many, it was the start of a new one.
Okay, anyways, I'm gonna get started with the fourth case, and then basically I'm gonna end things off, just because I want to have a place to save off. Okay, no, I want to save in the case. Now, episodes 4 and 5 are actually pretty unique, and that basically they're going to be one continuous trial. Yeah, that's right. The game is going to be kicking into overdrive right now, because basically if you thought this was a good case, then basically you are going to be in for a real ride with episodes 4 and 5, because really, it's because both of these are one trial. They are one trial. This is part 1 and this is part 2. So yeah, let's get started. Episode 4. Yeah, I selected episode 5 by accident.
Pipe in hand, Sholmes looked down at the thick, rolling fog outside our window. I wonder exactly how many mysteries are out there, hidden within this bed of fog, he said. Indeed, a most bizarre incident, born of a curious advertisement. A hellhound's mad gallop through the shadows of a serial murder, an executed man's graveyard resurrection in the dead of night. And a commonplace killing in a small, forgotten room at the edge of town. There is, naturally, always another side to every case, of which most remain ignorant. And it is that other side which compels me to the scene of the crime, Wilson. So quickly now, take your hat and let's be on our way, my dear fellow. For our adventure is not over yet. Come, the game is afoot.
Eight days after that earth-shattering trial and Kazuma is regaining his memory, we were in the foyer of one of London's most luxurious hotels, the Great Waterloo Hotel. Professor Mikadoba is due to arrive at any moment, but this episode is due to end at any second, because I think now would be a good time to end things off. Anyways, I really appreciate that you stuck around to watch this episode. You're a great viewer, and I hope you come back for the next one. If you like this video, like, subscribe, comment, share, do whatever you want. With that, I'll see you next time. Bye.